G'day guys, Toss20 here and welcome back to Springwood. Today's episode is very productive. I ended up building quite a lot and smushing it all into a very tight, very quick time lapse that you're going to see pretty shortly. And decided to give you a bit of a tour of the whole airport and a bit of a live play around the 23-minute mark. So stay tuned for a pretty comprehensive overview of what we've been building over the last few weeks. We're going to kick things off by placing down basically every piece I want to, every potential piece that I could be using for this airport. Now, I kind of wanted to, base it off one particular style, going off the international terminal in Sydney. I was really trying to follow that pretty well, but I do deviate from that model quite a lot because just the style of my one compared to Sydney terminal is, pretty different, and you'll see it pretty shortly how different it is. But I was using that as a bit of a model, as a bit of a guide, and it really helps me to kind of incorporate all the things that an international terminal really has, because like I say in almost every episode, I definitely don't know airports or planes, and I don't really know how they operate. So by using Google Earth, it really helps to make sure that I can actually fit all the things that are necessary for an international airport. So yeah, what I was saying before is I basically plopped down all the pieces, and these are all made by Vazmir. He's made a really great set of, I think there's small terminal, there's a domestic terminal or medium-sized terminal, and then there's the international large. I can't remember the total names that he's called them. But they're really great because it means then you can actually use the pieces kind of like a jigsaw puzzle and put them into a shape that you kind of want. Actually, that's the opposite of a jigsaw puzzle. Jigsaw puzzles are pretty rigid. The opposite of a jigsaw puzzle. Just kind of place them into a design that I like. I'll try and think of a better way to describe that later. Also, just copying and pasting something that I've already built before, because, why the hell would I rebuild it? And I didn't particularly like placing down all those lines to begin with, so I'm trying to copy and paste as many from the domestic terminal as possible. By the way, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but I don't go to as much detail with the line placing as on the domestic side, purely because, well, firstly, I didn't really enjoy doing it in the first place. And second of all, they're just all placing down those lines are so tedious. It just really takes away from the real joy of this job, which is kind of creating the flow and the feeling of a big international airport. And by placing down those lines, it's just so... I'm making excuses. I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. That doesn't mean I didn't do any of them. I placed down the bulk of it, but I just didn't go into as much detail as I did in the last one. So sorry for that. Like I said in the last episode, we are practically finished with the actual layout of the airport. I reckon I've got about another 1 or 2 episodes based around the airport, and then I'm just going to be fleshing out all the industry and neighborhoods around it, which will really help to kind of make it fit into the rest of Springwood, because at the moment it's very awkwardly placed, totally removed from the rest of the city. So I am quite excited to start fleshing out this area and working on a lot of the other parts around this airport, particularly some places that are way far away from the main city, and we're getting onto towns that aren't even classified as Springwood. They're just totally their own town, away from the city, not even connected, maybe connected by a highway. This is exciting. This is a shit we've been talking about for a year, moving on to other parts of Springwood. Before I get sidetracked, on the screen, I've just placed down some new plane stands, and I wanted to make sure that they worked. And so I've unpaused the game, and I'm just watching the flow come through and making sure the planes are hitting the right places, and there's no glitches, there's no problems, and we're good, guys. We're totally good. We have planes landing, and that's very exciting for an airport, because if you've ever built a custom airport in Skylines, you know that they're very tricky to work out and to happen, and they can not work at times, which is very painful. Mine works. It totally works. It's all the runways work. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I do go through this in the live play, but yeah, totally good for traffic. As you can see, this time lapse is pretty fast. I'm missing lots of the detail in the build. I did that on purpose. I didn't really want to show you too much of what I'm building on screen in the time lapse. I wanted to show you that in the live play at the end so I can really dig deep and show you the bits and pieces that we've been doing, and actually looking at the airport work with traffic and people coming in and how it all flows, because the flow of the airport is actually where the magic's at. So I'm going to refrain from talking about the way it works, and I'm going to talk about the inspiration for this airport. So, I mean, as you're all very tired of hearing, this is all about Sydney International Terminal, and I've just been focusing on that area really specifically because I wanted to make sure that I hit all the right pieces for what that airport uses. Ugh, terrible English there. You get what I'm trying to say. Things that I knew that I had to place down is mostly every international airport will have some sort of hotel. I ended up placing down one, I forget what it's called, I think it's a Novotel. And so that's one aspect that I needed to place down. Parking's a huge one, so I really wanted to make sure that I had ground level parking that was the main bulk of the thing, and then also some garage parking that was obviously very close to the terminal because that's where most of the people are actually parking at. There's random businesses around, that was really important, so I've placed down quite a lot of different office blocks. I have this, air train that services most of the traffic from people. I mean, I've noticed that it might be even Traffic President mod that's making this happen, but most of the people coming to and leaving the airport are coming via the air train, which is cool, but I do also want people to be driving around because that is probably the main source of like traffic in real life. I know at least in Sydney, that's how people get to and from the airport, well, at least most people. So I would like to see more traffic. So I've placed down quite a lot of different things to encourage people to come, like the event spawners. I'll show you what they are in the live play, but they really help to get people actually coming and visiting the airport, which is kind of strange to say, but it's kind of important. And even having the parks and businesses and even having parking around, that also encourages people to actually come to this airport. Because I mean, air traffic's it does encourage a lot, but I really wanted to emphasize huge amounts of people coming to Springwood because I mean, this is where, and this is how most people are getting to Springwood. It's been really, really fun actually fleshing out the airport and making all this happen because, like I said a couple of episodes ago, I was not excited to do the airport, and now that I've started, it's been one of my highlights of the builds for 2017. It's been a lot of fun. What I'm doing on screen right now is just fleshing out a bit of the surrounding environment for the Novotel Hotel that I've placed down. I didn't want to go too crazy, but I kind of do go a bit crazy with detail. I really wanted to place down quite a lot of planters to just break up that grey concrete texture I have. Now, this was a big problem that I faced with building this airport because airports have just giant amounts of car parks and actually it's just car parks take up the majority of airport space, and unfortunately, like in City Skylines, there's pretty much only one texture in terms of concrete, and I mean, I could use poppable asphalt mod, but I'd use it in some places. However, placing that down it's time consuming, and they're all props, so they just add to that prop limit, and I just was not willing just to place down an entire car park full of that. I do a trick at the end of this episode, so at the end of the time lapse, stay tuned for that. That is quite a cool thing that I think might work in other places. I don't even know if I'm going to keep it. Just wait and see, it's kind of cool. So my biggest problem with building this airport is trying to use different textures without going crazy with a prop limit, and crazy with decals, so I wanted to try and get as much happening over this ground, this grey texture as much as possible, which is very tricky, was not an easy task. I'll show you a little bit more about that in the live play when we get into that, and I can show you how I kind of got rid of some of that. Traffic President mods, I really wish I downloaded that earlier. It's been such an amazing mod to use for this build, particularly when placing down these car parks. So I mean, if you haven't used this mod, I reckon definitely get your hands on it. What it basically does is all these car parks you see right now, except for the 45-degree ones, they are actual car parks, like there are people actually use them, they're not just decals. And traffic will actually use that, so people will actually use that those car spaces, and they will take the closest car space to where they are going. So if they're going to the terminals, then they will choose the parking space right next to the terminals. I don't even know why I'm explaining this. This mod's been out for a whole year, and people have already spoken about this. However, I haven't really used it much, so I'm very excited to be using it and working with it and seeing what I can actually do with it in Springwood, which is pretty exciting. What I'm doing on screen right now is something that I've noticed within a lot of airports, is that there's a lot of different walkways for pedestrians, because people want to get from one place to another so quick and so easy, particularly around airports. So they don't want to be screwing around with paths and, how do I get from A to B? They need to be getting from their car, they need to be getting from the terminal like as quick as they can. So a lot of these airports have pedestrian ways that are just super simple to follow and are everywhere. So this is one that I built that I wanted to be, probably one of the main walkways for people. I even do some cool things where I drag like actual pedestrian path along this way. Yep, there I go there. And that way people actually do use it. So that's really cool to see in the live play at the end, because it looks really cool seeing people actually use these things. By the way, the airport functions so nicely. Like, people are using it exactly how they use an airport, which is so cool. Alright, just need to wait until the live play. Just hold your horses, man, we'll get to that. What I'm building right now is an area for people to, it's a drop-off zone, except it's not a drop-off zone where it's like very quick. It's more of an area that you could spend about 5 minutes at. This is a place that I use a lot when I drop people off or get picked up from, when I use the airport in Sydney, and it gives you a little bit extra time. I think people can actually even park around there, and it's a little bit more freedom, whereas when you drop people off at the actual terminal, it's super quick. You're in, you're out. So that's what I was going for, this sort of spot. There's a lot of places like that within airports, systems like that in airports, that was really helpful looking at Google Maps and at Sydney Airport to figure those things out, because without looking at real life images, then I'd probably actually miss a lot of that. Just a trick, that's something that I always do, always miss out on all those bits, all those little details if I don't follow Google Maps exactly. Plus, I just love looking at Google Maps anyway, it just gives me a really good excuse. Something else that I wanted to stress within this airport is that pedestrians can only use walkways that are designated for pedestrians. I didn't want people just walking around everywhere, so as you can see, I've really blocked off that walkway along that road there, because, well, no one needs to be walking across there. It's not like people are walking from Springwood to the airport, that's not a thing. So walkways are practically just around where the car parks are, and I'm trying to get rid of a lot of the other ones that are surrounding like the highways and other places like that. You'll see me get rid of quite a lot, because I want to stress that with airports, they are structured in a way that it's meant to be very easy for people to get around, and I was trying to build with that mentality that there's giant walkways for people to walk through, but then other areas around car parks and highways are just totally blocked off. I wanted there to be quite a lot of nature around too, a lot of trees. I think I said this in the last episode, but international airports are usually the first and last place tourists see, and tourism is a big part of cities, they usually like drive a lot of money into the city, so it's really important that those places are pretty schmick, pretty awesome, and leave good impressions with people. Like, people are always going on about airports, and one of the same for Springwood. I mean, Springwood's a bit of a dive. Let's be honest. There's some places that are nice, but like Springwood is pretty shit. And but I wanted it to feel like the airport was at least somewhat nice, well, at least some areas were nice in Springwood. And this is like another place that is meant to be really nice around these air train terminals. So I got a little bit of a cafe thing going on, and again, breaking up that grey concrete texture by placing down those decals, but trying not to be too crazy with them because it's easy to get carried away with decals. Over here, I am now building something that could be exciting for some people, but we're finally getting some buses into Springwood. I mean, this only just dawned on me that buses don't actually exist within the city, which is kind of crazy. I just haven't gotten to... Actually, no, it's not that I haven't gotten around to building them yet. It's because, like, in my head, Springwood's not finished. Like, there's so many roads and so many places that still need to be built. Building a bus network would just be kind of crazy because it's not finished. So, once I build the network, and then I'm just going to build another neighborhood that's going to need to be connected. So I'm just kind of holding off doing that. However, I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a shuttle at least going from the airport to the downtown of Springwood, and that's not going to change at all. I mean, the shuttles are going to follow the highways mostly. So as you can see, I'm just dragging that link from each terminal. So it stops off at the international, domestic terminal, goes to the parking lot that also serves the airport, and then it goes to the downtown. That might be about it for the network for the bus line, for the bus shuttle, airport shuttle. Tell me if you think I should maybe add a couple more stops, because that might be cool. Like, when I think back to traveling or like catching the bus to, I don't think I've ever caught a bus to Sydney Airport before, but I'm pretty sure they only really stop off at the main destinations. Usually downtowns and maybe like a main tourist destination, a terminal, and that's it. I didn't want to go too crazy with those stops. You can also see me covering up a lot of the concrete with more trees and foliage. I really wanted to break up that concrete. It was really, really, really tricky, especially with airports just being full of concrete and car parks and all that. It was the biggest challenge for this build, I think. But do find ways around it. We will say that towards the end. This is a little bit of a helpful thing that I did in this little area is placing down another one of the car rental services for Springwood Airport. There's a lot of these. Like, usually there's tons around airports. This is my second one. There's one outside of the actual airport on the way to downtown Springwood, and this one is placed within the international terminal. I might place another one. I mean, they're very common within airports in general, so like I might do another one. I'm not really sure yet, but this one definitely turns out a lot better than the first one I built. A couple of things that I'm doing to save on props and to save on time is, well, it even looks awesome. So what I've done is I've placed down two highway sections, and I've placed down a couple of decals just to cover up some ugly lines. Using those highway sections worked really well because it meant that you get really cool streaky lines in the highway texture anyway without having to place down any extra decals. And then I can also just use these giant white line decals that I have to plop them down over some of these other lines. I mean, usually these areas are just full of lines marking out where the different cars are meant to sit. However, I kind of went for a bit more of a, I don't know, budget, a bit more of a budget sort of a feel for it, I guess. It definitely felt a little bit cheaper when I was kind of not using quite as many lines. However, like it feels exactly the same, and it just means you don't have to go to too much detail. I hope you don't think I'm just really cheaping out. I'm kind of just trying to save myself a lot of time because, I mean, if you're probably not aware, Springwood is definitely not all about all the details. It's kind of about building just the sense of a giant city, and you can't build a giant city if I'm going to paint down every single line in one little car park. It's just not that sort of a build. But regardless, it turns out cool, and like I say all the time, cities aren't perfect, businesses aren't perfect. There are always going to be huge amounts of imperfections with everything, especially with wear and tear, and when places get a bit older, they lose lines, and look, I'm just justifying myself. You get what I'm trying to say. But it turns out really cool. I'm really, really happy with how this little area turns out. I've actually never used a car rental service within an airport before, so I mean, if people like to hit me up in the comments and tell me how they work, that'd be really cool. But I assume that you basically like drive up the car that you are dropping off along the one-way street, and then you park it up here, and then basically it's like a quick in and out service. You drop it off, you pay for it, somebody else comes in, will clean it, then somebody else comes and picks it up. I'm pretty sure it's like a real fast in and out service. Like I assume so with the way that this is sort of laid out. Could be completely wrong, so hit me up. I'm always curious to find out whether I'm right or wrong. Generally wrong, I'm pretty sure. The thing that I struggle with this as well is I only really have 80 styled cars, and I feel like there should be probably more modern cars sitting around this, apparently, I don't know, I'm wrong, because apparently these car rental services have been around for, since the 70s and the 50s, so I think it's totally fine to have 80s cars there, but it just feels a little bit strange. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, I got rid of all that grey concrete around it, and decided to go for another tree line area. Really, really trying hard to make this side of the terminal look really nice, because this is like pretty much as soon as you leave the international terminal and you're driving down, and this is probably your first glimpse of Springwood skyline and maybe some of the foliage and the different tree types around this area. I mean, it'd be, if you were a tourist coming into this spot right now, it'd be a pretty exciting little area. But like I said before, it's really hard not to just create an entire forest when you're kind of blazing down these lines. But that's pretty much it for this time lapse. We're gonna shoot off into a live play in just probably about 50 seconds. This is what I was talking about with the highway sections, just placing these down, covering up heaps of the concrete, and then covering up the bits in between with the ploppable asphalt mod, and it worked really well. But let me know if you think it's worth doing with the whole thing, or whether it does look good. But anyway, I'll give you guys about 30 seconds of pure 80s goodness, and I'll catch you guys in a live play in 30 seconds. Hey guys, welcome back. So it's been about 5 days since I built this terminal, and since then I've actually gone and built the rest of the airport. So definitely keep an eye out, because I dare say I might accidentally give out some spoilers as I fly around this airport. I'm going to try my best not to, but I dare say I will. Also, I've turned down the graphics a bit because, when I'm recording, and then I'm also doing audio recording and just the game playing, and it's pretty dense, I'm going to lose some FPS. So I'm just trying to save a bit of trying to get a bit of a balance. But anyway, let's have a look at what I've built, because I really want to highlight how this terminal functions, and best way to do that is in a live play. So let's start from the very, very beginning of the terminal. As you enter this international side, the only entrance is through just here. It's not the biggest avenue, but I mean, it's like 3 lanes, which, at the moment, we're not getting huge amounts of traffic. So at the moment, it's doing just fine. On your right-hand side, we have some parking that's probably just for people who work at the airport. Seeing as it's kind of far away from the actual terminal itself, we wouldn't want to be a passenger parking around here. Got an office, got a lot of offices scattered around the terminal because there are quite a lot of business side of things that are happening. I'll go into that shortly, but yeah, that's kind of essential. Some offices around an airport. We have one of the biggest features is the Novotel Hotel. A lot of people talking about how hotels are common in airports. I agree. Loved putting this thing down. I think it fits in really nicely. Left-hand side, we have the cargo side of things. We have two entrances into the actual terminal. We have the left-hand side, which takes you up to the top floors. No one's going up there except for that guy. If you can think of a way of getting people up there, I'm all ears. I would love to see some traffic coming up here, but at this stage, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. On the bottom side of things, we have just here, maybe like I don't know. I usually drop people off at places like this. It means then you can kind of park your car, get out, say goodbye, you spend 5 minutes here, and then you're on your way. Whereas if you were to drop people off around here, it's very quick. You got to stay in your car. That's what this side of things is meant to be. We also have this this pedestrian walkway that serves quite a lot of places. It serves people who are parked around here, people who are going to the Novotel, and also people who are going to the bus stop. So it's really cool. Like, we're getting quite a lot of traffic, a lot of people coming in and out. These people are deciding to walk down here, but there is actually a pedestrian path along here that I have seen people use. I swear they have. You'll see it in the cinematics at the end at least. Lots of parking. Ronix has just released some larger ploppable asphalt that I'm going to stick down in these areas a little later. I haven't done that yet, but that will fit in really nicely. What else? Here is the first stop for the international side. It has a bit of a cafe attached to it and quite a lot of foot traffic coming in and out around here, especially when we might catch an air train coming through here, but we get tons and tons of traffic, which is really cool. On this side, we have the main parking lot for passengers. We get lots of people coming in here. These big garages are really common right next to the terminal, so I made sure that it was very close and easily accessible for passengers. Let's see what else. More office blocks. Lots and lots of office blocks. We have over here the bus station. I mean, he's going the wrong way, but they're meant to be going down here. They usually go down there. I don't know why he's doing that. We also have the end of the line for the air train. Basically turns around and goes the other direction. More walkways, like lots and lots of different walkways. Not hugely decorated. Try to keep it pretty simple. By the way, like, these little hedges came in the updates for Green Cities, and like, along with a whole bunch of other things, they are so useful and so cool. I use them all the time. I've plopped down some gravel down here just to play with a couple of different colors. Let me know what you think. I think it fits in pretty cool. My roads have kind of screwed up a little bit. I don't know what's going on here, but that used to look really cool. Now it doesn't. I'm not sure why. I might fix that. We'll get to that later. And here we have the exit for the terminal. It's a really quick in and out system. I mean, people aren't really dawdling around here. Like, people are really shooting through, getting out. In terms of the plane side of things, I kept it really simple. I did not go to as much detail as I went to last time. I couldn't be bothered, and also I couldn't be bothered. A couple of things that people were mentioning, have been mentioning as I build the airport is, first thing is that these spokes, I don't know what they are, the gates, I think they're gates. They are always on the left-hand side of planes, so I've tried to make sure, I've made sure that looks like that. B. Squigglehausen mentioned a couple of things. He said that just because an international terminal has international planes doesn't mean they're always going to be big. So I tried to make sure there was a mix between larger planes and then smaller planes. He also said that These sort of gates, these terminals, usually will actually, they always just occupy the same airline. So on this side we have CS Airlines, except Royal Airlines are deciding to just come along there. We also have on this side Transcon, and then down here we also have CS Airlines. So I tried to make it a bit of a mix and tried to keep it in the same theme. A couple of other people have been mentioning how I need to be putting down like hospitals within the airport. I think they'd probably live within the actual terminal, so I didn't plop down anything like that. Perhaps I might put down a couple of ambulances, like that might be cool. Fire stations are to come next episode. Don't worry, I've got them coming. Catering systems, I think they'll probably sit within the terminal as well. I do have a couple of trucks to kind of act as if they're serving the airport at least. Yeah, I think that's about it, guys. Like I've been putting in lots of bits of detail off camera because, I mean, popping down boxes aren't exactly thrilling. You can see them in the live play and the cinematics, which are just around the corner. Definitely stay tuned for that. Been really enjoying making this terminal and this airport with all your help, so thank you so much. And next episodes, we're going to be finishing it off and then maybe working on a bit of the outskirts of this area. But until then, have a great week, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See ya.